Hello everyone and welcome. In this recording, I'm gonna be speaking about the upcoming partial solar eclipse slash new moon taking place in the sign of Virgo, but I'm also gonna be mentioning about the autumn, better said Libra equinox. So when I say autumn, you must adjust it to where you are on the planet, or which hemisphere you are on the planet, because where I am, it's gonna be autumn equinox. Where you are, it might be spring equinox. So when I say autumn in this recording, I'm gonna be referring to, my region. So it's Libra equinox, astrologically speaking. It's when the sun enters into the sign of Libra. It is a cardinal sign, so that's why it initiates, it opens, it's the gateway to another season. And that other season is the basically karma of the next 3 months, or the schematic of the next 3 months. So that's why equinoxes are very important in many ways, not just typically astrologically speaking, but in so very many ways, it's always a powerful initiation moment, period. Sometimes very actively, where we know that we want to initiate because something ripened inside of us. And this is especially true, in my hemisphere because autumn is associated with harvest and, things ripening and stuff like that. So it's very spot on. But at the same time, even spring has its, how should I say, nutritious or nourishing powers, where it nourishes, it grows, it starts growing, it awakens to life. So anyway, that doesn't matter. What matters is that it's always karmic. So fated stuff usually is scheduled around that period. And I'm gonna be speaking about these in one video because they are so very much tied in together. You know, they're one day apart, but as you can see, as you will see in the following, this Virgo eclipse, partial solar eclipse of a new moon, is just hours away from the Libra equinox. That means that, technically speaking, it's the gateway to Libra. A tiny little bit, it's already touching Libra. It's already at the wake of the equinox, really. So, in a way, it's part of the equinox. It's part of the karma of the next 3 months. It's powerful. And ironically speaking, it's not even the eclipse part of the energy which makes it that very powerful. In its power, well, let me compare it to this just very recent, on the 7th of September, a total lunar eclipse in Pisces. Very powerful, psychologically, especially. Psychologically, spiritually, and truth, how should I say? Wake up call, reality check, truth bomb, wise. In so very many ways. It really changed the tone. It really ended, how should I say? If anything that I can generalize, a way of feeling, if that makes sense, a certain way of emotional response, maybe. But if I'm allowed to use fancier words, really it's the frequency. It ended a frequency, it changed a frequency. Right now, that's very subjective. And maybe for many people, not for everyone, but for many people, deeply personal. Maybe for some people, they haven't even spoke about it yet. It's just something inner, but they know something. They know, they feel, they realize, they, it might have been an epiphany, a Piscean epiphany, but still epiphany. So that's the lunar eclipse. It was really powerful. This one, so the solar eclipse is gonna change things around the same fashion, just that this is the other side of the axis, the earthly side. So this one might more directly cause powerful changes in our lives, and perhaps the keyword here is adaptation or response. Adaptation, if my thought process is not wrong, can also be seen as problem solving, because problem solving is a modality or path of adapting to something. Or why not the other way around, adapting something to our own needs? That's also very Virgo energy. Anyway, as a beginner, let's start with Virgo. Because Virgo has certain big key themes um, attached to it, specific to it. And those key themes are very not so mysterious. You know, some part of astrology is very subtle, very mysterious, very not very on the surface. For example, Piscean energy, Scorpionic energy, many times, for example, Gemini energy, because you think it's something and it's really the other, the opposite, the total opposite of it. Anyway, but this Virgo energy is really factual, out there. So, for example, certain key themes is uh, associated with Virgo is service and how we manage our lives, our times, especially the small things, the everyday things, what we do in our day. Because, you know, in life, are the big things, the big goals, the big moment, the big going towards our principles, right? However, all of that means nothing if our basic everyday functions and rituals and routines and, you know, our daily life is in total chaos or something's not right there. Also, Virgo in astrology rules the physical body, and even more specifically the digestive tract, even more specifically the gut biome, and it is ruled by Mercury, so it's always associated with intelligence, figuring stuff out. So this is figuring stuff out leads to the other key nature of Virgo, discrimination. But when I say discrimination, don't necessarily understand what it means legally in this day and age, but rather very strong discernment and judgment. But when I say again judgment, it's not the bad type of judgment. It is simply discerning right from wrong. That's Virgo. That's where we put labels on it. This is wrong. This is wrong because it's a thought process. It is not as easy as first reaction, just because Virgo does think about it. First reaction might be in the realms of more like Aries, Gemini, when I say Gemini, it's the words, what we say. How many times first reaction, those words get us in trouble one way or another. So you see how, but also when there's a powerful filter and the classical thinking before we speak, how many times it can lead us to success. So Gemini, it's not just the bad, it's also the good. But the filter is Virgo. That filter is exactly the realm of Virgo. So this is what I mean when I say discrimination or judgment. It is the Virgo expression. It can be negative, absolutely, because let me tell you the typical discrimination that a word that we really dislike today, or a word that we really feel very strongly about. Slavery, discriminating by ethnic origins, etc., etc. Well, Virgo actually ruled slaves and slavery. Okay, understand this as humor more than anything serious. However, it has a serious side as well. That's why modern day slavery as well is under the rulership of Virgo. The thing is, it doesn't matter, especially in the realm of Virgo, what the person feels it as. That's Pisces. The illusion, the Fata Morgana. Illusion is not a bad thing. It is divine. Illusion is divine. It has an intent, it has a logic, it has a function, it has a role, it keeps things in harmony when it itself is a harmonious, a divine illusion, right? It has a negative expression as well. The deception, the judgment, that type of judgment, that's also Virgo. Pisces Virgo axis. When we judge due to anything, ego, vanity, our own wounds and traumas rooted deeply. That's very much Pisces energy. So that's the axis that we're dealing with. We had the Piscean side on 7th of September. Now we get the Virgo side. And this is a very strong Virgo side again. Not necessarily because the eclipse factor, because an eclipse is when the conjunction of the sun and moon, or the opposition, happens close to the nodes of the moon. So if you're looking at the screen, you see that this is a south node eclipse, but it's not all that close to the conjunction of the new moon point, which is 29 and 5 minutes of Virgo. And those of you who know astrology already know what I'm about to say here. So it's not all that close, meaning that the eclipse factor of it, so a reset, or the change, because that's a reset, or that's what the eclipse means. It cuts something off or restarts something, and the new cycle begins. And that new cycle, even if it may continue the past one, there's still something new about it. There's still something different about it. So eclipses do bring the different. And of course, according to the ancients, um, they were associated with, crisis moments. Crisis, intensity, maybe sometimes sudden, unexpected, and personally speaking, that in modern spirituality, especially the clichéic saying, your own path, returning you to your authentic line of destiny, path, etc. That is always part of the eclipses. So that part especially, of course, it's there, but it might not be the strongest element. However, it's still fated. And it still contains the crisis power because it's 29 degree, anaretic degree. The crisis point, the change point, the culmination point, shadowy energy. Something reached its heights, its culmination. So you see how interesting this energy is because it's a bit of ending and new beginning and creating something, especially a solution, but also reality check mixed into one picture. So I would say that whatever this comes, up as, and I refer here more to if it's like a crisis or the stir up part of the eclipse. It doesn't really matter how it may look like at first. There's something very positive attached to it. Even if it may be negative at first, or, a crisis. Do I need to even explain this? The word just says it all. And it doesn't mean it cannot be something very positive. Because even that can have echoes, even that can have elimination attached to it, or the need to solve urgently things. Like, let me give you an example. Um, you scheduled a wedding, your wedding. It's pretty much planned out. And then suddenly, unexpectedly, no one thought this, no one expected this, some big thing, something very positive, something that you, I don't know, maybe waited for many years and worked towards many years, comes up comes up at your career, but in Virgo, you need to be there. You can't go to your own wedding. What does that mean? You realize this, the crisis, and then you and your future wife, of course, decide that it's okay to put the wedding on a different, no problem at all. Of course, we put it for your success, honey, right? But that's not easy, and that's so hard. That's so inconvenient. That's so, how should I say, crisis? Really, it's a crisis. All the phone calls and, you know, however is the best thing ever. Everyone's happy. No one said. No one minds, right? So even the good can have inconveniences or not even inconvenient. Readaptation is really. And readaptation in this modern age is scary because we are so creatures of unhealthy comfort. We became that. And this isn't even generational. Everyone became that pretty much. Okay, everyone who is in the circumstance, but most of the world's population is. So one way or another, most people did greatly immerse into comfort, if not fully become creatures of comfort. So that's why adaptation is harder and harder and harder. However, this is a small side note. Of course, we became creatures of comfort because the last great conjunction, so the paradigm set, before this new one, the new cycle, so the last one of the old cycle, 2000, so the year 2000, great conjunction meaning the meeting of Jupiter and Saturn was in Taurus. So that last 20 years from 2000 till 2020, of course, comfort was a big, we needed to explore it. Good side and bad side as well. But 2020, the kind of COVID and another very powerful and historic and massive celestial event, the Saturn Pluto conjunction, but that's another story. Uh, it kind of, how should I need to find the right words here. It really robbed the comfort in. It forced us to stay in a certain comfort, like right in our homes, having to consume internet and TV and art, and it robbed it in. But after, it's a different world, different paradigm, no more comfort. Comfort does not work. Comfort had to be alchemized in 2020 into joy, and physical pleasure is very needed in life, but not comfort is not one of them. Comfort is no longer physical pleasure or included in the higher end Taurian list. The higher expression of Taurus is comfort became a bit of a like a renegade thing. It's still important, but it has an ankle bracelet as an what is comfort? Because I wanted to say emotion, but it's more like a sensation. But anyway, so you understand what I'm saying. And a negative example of the same thing, let's say when something cancels your holiday, your long awaited holiday. You have no choice but to cancel it. Virgo, anything can happen. Your health breaks down. You're not gonna go on the holiday when you're in a serious condition, or work, the other service, something where you're not forced. You may be forced. Actually, you may be forced. But let's say that you're not forced, but you force yourself because it's something you really want to be there. You really, even at the expense of the holiday. So you choose this, and let's say the good side of things, the plane crashes that you should have been on. You can imagine. But let's not go to something extreme as this. Whatever the crisis was at work, you're there, you completed. Next month, you get such a big promotion or thank you or honor or something that it imprints itself into your self-worth forever. It's something you're gonna tell your grandchildren, etc., etc. You see the power of the eclipse and how it can be a positive adaptation, something that is powerful, very powerful. Now, we understand the energetic power of it. So we understand why it's so very strong in its expression. Now, let's forget about the new moon itself and let's look at the rest of the sky, where this part ties into the equinox energy as well. because this is what we can expect. Uh, it's not just the new moon that's aneretic. Aneretic energy is present in more than one way. So let's look at other aneretic energies. One hand, we have aneretic Mars in Libra. So for the world, collectively, this is big energy. This is big, something big. Why do I say this? Libra is almost like when a person is, escorted to court with two, how you call those guardians, gendarmes, or officers, whatever, correctional officers, you know, uh, grabbing the person by their hands, and they're dragged to court. That's what I want to say. So the new moon, eclipse new moon is on one shoulder, is at one shoulder. Mars is at the other shoulder. Libra is actually justice, court of justice, diplomacy, one on one. And when I say one on one, we are understanding it in a collective perspective, countries, one on one with countries, nations, etc., and karma, and justice, and law, and all of that. All of the what's very hot, Mars hot, even in the present moment. And Mars itself is in a dual energetic state. Why? It's not powerful. It's uncomfortable in Libra because in Libra, to simplify the energy, it needs to take action for the other or forced by the morality or law, or in its opposite sign Aries, which it rules by the way, action for the self or empowered action of survival. It's easy. It's in its own element. Libra, it's furthest away from home as possible, so many times it needs to burn, toil, be Mars for others, or for the name of justice, etc. So you see why it's stressed. However, it's with one foot also in its ancient ruling sign of Scorpio, where it's as intense as it can possibly get. Let me tell you what I mean by this by a very simple example. When someone, especially Scorpio, the horror, doom and gloom, the not nice, the scary, like when someone commits a murder, there is that moment of no return when they make the decision out of, let's say, hateful passion. There's no turning back. I'm doing it. For example, in the US, in these past, actually from the very start of the year, so many shootings and that. When that individual makes the decision, that would be one of the ugliest but powerful, right? Powerful. Ugly but powerful expression of Mars and Scorpio. Or let me give you a good expression. Let's not just go to the ugly. When someone is in a bad material situation and sees that something on the shop window that is so expensive they'll never get it. And that moment they make the determination, I'm gonna get it. I am gonna get it. They go work hard or gamble something, or Mars and Scorpio, they figure it out. Of course, they get it and the satisfaction. I got it. I got it. Poor as I am, I still got it. I found a way. Right? That's a good expression of Mars and Scorpio. So Mars is on one foot there, on other foot in Libra. However, in Libra it's still anoretic. In Libra it's not animate. It's cold hard karma. It's blind justice. It's what the scales show is what the scales show. You know, one of the most a bit not so nice examples for this. If the ring weighs 1 gram, it really doesn't matter for the scale and the merchant that it's your beloved, right? The fact that it's your beloved doesn't even matter to the, how you call those, I don't want to say pawn shop. Oh, you know what I mean, pawn shop. I want to say the antique shop, where the history will matter, but not how much you love it, right? How much you love it and what it means to you on or for your little heart, that doesn't matter. The what it meant through an era, and that matters. So what the scales show is what the scales show. Right? That's why Mars, anoretic Libra, karma, inanimate. It is what a reality check. But then the reality check is provided by the other end of Libra, the new moon. Virgo-ish energy, anoretic Virgo-ish energy, with one foot in Libra as well. But I haven't finished with Mars. Mars is what astrologers call via combusta. 15 degrees of Libra to 15 degrees of Scorpio, the path of fire. Mars, fiery, on the path of fire. This is intensity. This is struggle. This is fight. In courts of justice for Libra, as in the morality of it, the justice of it, the fairness of it, the Venus of it. So this is already an anoretic energy, which makes things severe. Another anoretic energy, which is anoretic-ish, because technically it's 28, not 29 degree, but okay, it's still anoretic. Saturn in the opposite sign of Pisces. And we get to the major aspect of the eclipse, an opposition to Saturn. Very powerful opposition, because 1 degree difference, less, well, one. Anyway, it's powerful reality check. So it really has to stir up reality. But Saturn is in Pisces, not any type of reality. This is why, as hard, maybe harsh, as this energy may be, I still like it, because Saturn does not come with my previous example, what the scales show. Saturn in Pisces is basically the morality of the human spirit. Saturn comes with the human spirit. And the human spirit is in such nature, where sometimes judgment, the judgment of it all, it discriminates. When the scales show the 1 gram, but the heart matters, so the scales won't matter anymore. You know what I mean? This positive discrimination. Discrimination for the sake of morality and the beauty Venus. But also Mercury and Virgo. practical, but it has to be a word that Virgo likes, symmetrical, right? It has to make sense. So beauty is also a tiny bit part of it, especially at this eclipse, and equinox, because Venus is in Virgo actually. But we'll get to that later on. So Saturn, morality matters, human spirit matters. Christ, okay, I said a bad word here, because Christ is specific to one religion, one path. Let me just say total unconditional divine love, okay? That matters. It matters. It matters very, very much. But Saturn also brings other elements to the table, which, this is a weighing of what is just and fair and not, regardless of how we look at it. That is part of this energy in our lives, collectively, in the world, and world stage. So Saturn in Pisces, what was in the past, sadly, matters, and it's retrograde. So it matters. The past matters. The past, once again, but I really, really hope finally is stirred up big time. What happened in the past? Who did what? And the morality of it. And sadly, the religious side of it, religious history, the history of. I don't need to go into specifics because this energy is out there right now. Just look at it. And this is it's Pisces, the duality. It's not even um one-sided. It's multi-sided. It's also where any religions unite for the sake of morality, where any religion condemns XYZ event, person, leader. But there's other side where religions battle one another, where they can't battle one another directly, they battle one another in the shadows. That's the hypocrisy of all of it. So, Saturn in Pisces, fanatics. There are religious fanatics that lead certain countries. There are ideological fanatics which lead other countries. There are, well, I don't even know how to phrase this one, but they live kind of in illusion, and anything that suits their story, their fantasy, may it be religion, politics, ideology, they use it. It's good food, and they distort reality, like almost like it's not just them living their psychosis, but they force other people on a very large scale, to live the psychosis along with them, type of leaders. It doesn't matter, but that's also Saturn in Pisces. It opposes the new moon / eclipse. So, right? So what does this mean? It's stirred up once again. The past is stirred up. More recent past, because Saturn go retrograde for Saturn already was here. That's what I mean. So this retrograde is things that haven't settled down yet. Haven't settled yet. It has to find some kind of resolution or elimination. End. Bye-bye. In tarot, Saturn is the world card, the end, the completion, the scythe of Saturn, the harvest or end function of Saturn, the border guardian, right? So things have to settle down. So you see why this opposition is a powerful reality check. Everything matters. It's not just black and white. It's not just one-sided or even two-sided. There's much in the mix here. Much to consider. But this is why the eclipse is important. How difficult, how multi-sided, how subjective Pisces it is mattered until now. Now it doesn't. Time is up. No more patience. No more excuses. Karmically, this is where it's pushed into resolution. It doesn't matter anymore what that involves. That's the scary side. The repercussions don't matter anymore because time is up. Solutions must be born. It doesn't matter. And things which defy reality, for example, lies or narratives or propaganda, are gonna be forcefully opposed. Mars in Anaretic Libra. In courts of justice, Anaretic Libra, but it's going into Scorpio, whatever it takes. And in school, Mars in Scorpio is extreme and shadowy. This is where even the light can cheat if need be. Even the light can have below the belt moves. You know what I mean? This is where anything in existence to obtain its purpose can use means and means and means. Sometimes an eclipse. The veil between the worlds is especially thin. Rarely, that's why I said the eclipse moment, anything is permitted for everyone. And dichotomously to paradox reality. Those are the times we live in. Pluto and Aquarius. Nothing is permitted. Saturn opposes it. Anaretic energy. It's not easy. And this is where I'm not the astrologer. You are. Because this is an enigma. This is where unforeseeable. This is fate playing out. This is where time is up. This is where we certainly, as a collective, failed certain karmic exams, and we collectively face the repercussion now. But also collectively we passed other karmic exams and we reap the rewards. And we have Libra, we have to measure. Let's hope that the harvest outweighs, or in the worst case scenario is at least equal to the losses. I don't know how to word it in other ways, or what we have to pay for our transgression. Saturn in Pisces, right? And Mars in Anaretic Libra. There's no excuse anymore. Time is up. The veil is at its thinnest, and the shadow is there. New moon. The new moon is in itself the power of the shadow. But then an erratic new moon. But then that also be an eclipse. Then Mars, the small malefic and erratic. Then Saturn, the big malefic and erratic. And then they quincunx each other. The quincunx is where it's weird. It's unusual. It's I don't know what to do, what to think, what to feel at first glance. But then let's add more players into the picture. Neptune. Well, Neptune is at 0 degrees of Aries, the world stage, the alpha anaretic. It's anaretic, so it's The second chance from three, one's already up. This is the second chance when something that needs to be born, the dream, the spirit entering Earth, the energy, the Psi Neptune, the spirit, how can I say it in other words, needs to come here. If it doesn't now, no problem. There will be yet another chance next year when Neptune will hit 0 of Aries. February next year, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that. Um, but anyway, the 0, the critical, it needs to be revealed. Because Neptune opposes this lunate outer sign opposition, but it opposes the new moon slash eclipse. Revelation. Neptune adds the other layer of the reality check, especially that it's outer sign conjunct Saturn. Saturn providing the strong reality in Neptune's home sign of Pisces. So Neptune is forced to unveil, to remove the mask, to be realistic. This adds to the reality check big time. So that means Neptune himself holds the quincunx with Mars too. Mars is quincunxed by both Saturn and Neptune. Something is deeply fated here. But we'll get to that in just a little, because it's not over yet. There's more in the picture. Then we have Pluto and Uranus, both retrograde at 1 degrees of their signs, so Gemini, Aquarius, they trine. But I spoke about that trine between these two. But that's also where it's touching 0. They're going backwards. A special Uranus, actually they're not all that much, because Uranus hasn't picked up speed yet, and Pluto is gonna go direct soon, this autumn. So they're not all that fast yet. Yet still, Uranus is aiming for 29 degree of Taurus. Not yet, but this is critical energy beginning. One. It's serious. It's important. It's individualistic. It matters a lot. So Uranus brings the urgency. Now, remember what I said, that the new moon itself is also 1 foot in Libra? That makes it a grand air trine. Let's just call it a grand trine, where the new moon is not technically in air, it's in earth. But I think that's even better, because it adds the Virgo reality. And you see why this grand trine makes this eclipse new moon ultra, hyper, I don't even know what words to use, problem solving, adaptation, and the truth, the reality track, the truth bomb, or waking up from something. Let me give you from an addiction, for example. You just wake up. I'm done. I'm lucid. That means I'm gonna do what I need to do to get my life back together. And it's not even hard. It's just urgent. Not hard, but urgent. So when you wake up from, well, man, I'm not powerless. I'm not stupid. I'm not whatever you were caught, trapped in, whatever emotion, I'm not that. You wake up and start doing things for yourself. This eclipse can very much be and feel like that. Very, very much. So moving on, this trine, grand trine, is massively encouraging adaptation, problem solving, reality, taking action, taking urgent action. But that action may be in first instance something that you like a decision, a promise to the self, or setting the course, setting the GPS of your life, plan, the determination. So that might be the very, very first course of action. So, on the other hand, this grand trine guarantees what I said at the beginning, that whatever crisis may arise, because Uranus, the shock, the surprise. And you might say, well, Uranus is in the trine, so shouldn't it be positive? But it squares Venus very tightly. Venus being on one hand in Virgo, where she doesn't like it much. However, in Virgo, she is realistic. Very, how should I say? Painfully sometimes realistic. Like, when, oh, I got the best example for Venus and Virgo. When the husband improvises something, fixes something in a rather unconventional way where it is fixed, but it may not look too good or it wasn't worth the effort. But he's so proud and quickly summons the wife and shows and beats his chest. And the wife, well, what she does can range from straight on insult and hurting his feelings like a dagger in the heart, from humor and leading him on to the conclusion that it wasn't really worth it. Okay, it's nice, but no, I'm not impressed. So that's Venus and Virgo, the reality of it. But the highest expression of this energy, when Venus doesn't like it here, in tarot, it's actually the nine of um pentacles. Single and proud. This is so subjective. Most people would argue that single and proud and comfortable and very okay is actually a very prosperous, harmonious, very, very positive energy state to be in. Other people might say that, okay, all of that is true because we're speaking about single and proud, right? Not single and very unhappy, single and proud. Other people argue that, yeah, but even they have their lonely nights, and this and that's Venus in Virgo, the not so romantic side of life, right? But that can be very well comfortable and nice and lucrative and productive and whatever you want. It can be full of love and Venus, right? So no problem. But squaring Uranus, so Venus is gonna be shocked. But this is the good side. Exactly in Virgo, Venus can have the positive shock where, dang, it's so much better than I initially thought, where, Venus and Virgo. My previous example, the wife goes and sees what the husband has done, and of course, doesn't look all that good. Well, of course, yeah, but do you see how it looks like? Husband says, shut up and try it. And look at what the extra I've done to it. The wife, of course, tries it, and she has no choice but to really be amazed that, oh my goodness, it's so practical. You're a genius. I'm gonna say this just this once, shut up with it, but I have to admit, it, especially in Virgo, it can be that kind of shock and discomfort. And, the pride drops. That even Venus has to admit, yep, it's practical, it's genius, it works, it's Uranus and Gemini. The next, the new, the ingenuity, the unconventional. But this is when the unconventional works. However, okay, because Uranus is the stronger planet from both of them. So that's why its symbolism, what it brings to the table, matters a bit more than Venus's labels in in Virgo. However, sometimes it's when it doesn't matter if the unconventional works, it's too extreme. It's just too extreme. It's just something too futuristic, too different, too not in my labels, right? Not within my mastery, Virgo. So we, and don't forget, this is the Libra equinox. This square will be a signature of the autumn, sorry, of the next 3 months. Well, for me, autumn, yeah. So remember, life, work, solutions, brainstorming, allies that might show up, other people, something you learn, something you pick up, something you hear, something you yourself invent might surprise you. So this square is not all that bad. But okay, let's bring something even more positive to the table. I would even argue that in a certain way, it's more positive than the grand trine. Jupiter at 21 degrees of Cancer, this is good even automatically because Jupiter loves being in the sign of Cancer. And it's Cancer, self-care, nurture, protection, the motherly energies. Motherly energies in the sense that feeling as if embraced by the mother, right? Family, bonds, unity, inside the comfort of the shell. Trines Black Moon Lilith. And it trines the true Lilith to the degree. And Lilith being in the sign of Scorpio. So again, the cold, hard truth. The reality. Something that is there for everyone to see, where mostly it was in the shadows or in taboo. Let me give you one of the clearest examples of how to understand the symbolism of Black Moon Lilith and Scorpio that's playing out in the world right now. The Jeffrey Epstein files. Why? What's Lilith and Scorpio about it? The lady. I don't want to name her because, you know, this AI filters every video, and the lady friend of the deceased. Well, the deceased is Scorpio, the criminality of it, the hidden side of it, the perversion of it, the I don't want to use the word necessarily demonic, but it is very twisted. And when I say demonic, not in the ancient Greek sense, but rather in the biased Christian sense, especially in the biased Orthodox sense. The symbolism of the word, in that. So, and then Black Moon Lilith, the dark feminine. But then Black Moon Lilith, the dark feminine, that even though that she was involved one way or another, she holds all the cards. She holds the secrets. She plays the game as she wants. Jupiter, ironically, the court of justice. So this is Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio trying Jupiter in Cancer is where everything, even the shadow, even the bad, even the understand this again symbolically, just symbolically, where there's a greater evil and there's a lesser evil, whereas many times lesser evil has to join anything, everything to combat greater evil, because it would mean its own demise as well. So understand this Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio as an energy of, the lesser bad, the lesser harm is where, radiotherapy, it's harmful, but, right, I said everything. Or some kind of very strong, not so gentle treatment. It will either hurt or be very not so nice a few days. However, you survive. It does the job. That's how you can imagine Black Moon Lilith in Scorpio and trine Jupiter in Cancer. My example, it does the job. Either it's for justice, Jupiter, or this is where it's action. It's action time, either karmically or in any way, shape, and form, because the solution needs to be born. Now, before I include other planets here, there's another square that is gonna mark the next 3 months, and that's an outer sign square. But it will perfect very soon after. Pluto Mars. Powerlessness, tension, conflict, war, toxicity, rebellion, uprising, fighting for the truth, the shadow versus people. And when I say shadow, I don't mean it necessarily in a mystical or any supernatural way, but rather, for example, shadow government, corruption of governments versus people. Something that we saw play out in Nepal the last couple of actually hours, days, where they banned social media and there was a massive uprising. They set fire to government buildings, even the parliament, if I'm not mistaken. Remember Via Combusta, Mars being on it, traversing on it, it will burn. For justice, freedom of speech energy. Now, this is where we get to another good energy where Mercury is also part of the Grand Trine, Grand Air Trine. So definitely freedom of speech, because Mercury trine Uranus is higher octave. Mercury and Libra for justice, equity, uh, equality, fairness. Everyone matters. That's Libra. Mercury being in it. Uranus in Gemini, which supports all of what I said earlier about Libra. Gemini also is a firm believer of those and fights for that. And Gemini is actually the activist, if needed be. Not necessarily the activist that promotes, but the recruited activist, definitely. So you know what I mean? That energy. Very much, sorry, part of the picture. But then we must move further and see that there are some strong odds at play here. Oh, sorry, before I move further, I just want to say that there's a sextile between Mars and Venus. So it doesn't matter how uncomfortable this energy is, this can get things done. Get you there, or get you that. Get you where you need to be. Or my wife husband example. If you're the wife, try out what the husband did. Because it may not look good, but the improvisation may be an act of pure genius. That's the sex style. Improvise. But the other thing is where it's deeply something about this period, this autumn. So I'm not just saying the eclipse this autumn. Oh, sorry. The next 3 months, but the eclipse makes it next 6 months are deeply fated and are gonna change however the situation in your life and the world, whatever looks like, in the next 6 months is gonna look so very different. So is one set of yod. Neptune, Saturn, their conjunction. Actually, let's say their midpoint. And Uranus and Gemini. So them together, they yod Mars. Action. And again, I can't help but specify this duality of the energy. Mars being in 1 foot in Scorpio and 1 foot in Libra. Justice, action for justice, but Scorpio, strong intensity and whatever it takes. And energetic, time is up. No more patience, no more Mr. Nice Guy, no more something. Time is up, urgent action, urgent change. Divinely orchestrated, because Uranus, communication, especially in Gemini media, it becomes viral. It's something is uncovered, something is unmasked, something is understood, or there's like a whistleblower or some kind of fated Martian expression because the finger points at Mars. So it is action, reaction, don't do something, Saturn, banning something, or Neptune masking an action, and that mask falls off and it reaches every Uranus. So a deception is uncovered, or something shocking happens, and it leads to, on a positive side note, I clearly see this as a big archaeological discovery. Something archaeological discovery that is being discovered rocks the world of history or paleontology. You get what I mean. So it's gonna be big. But it's not this simple. Because give me just 1 second, let me look at there's another set of yod. There is another set of yod where Pluto and the same Neptune Saturn yod Venus. So remember Mars, Venus. So you see where the two fingers cross each other. This is also like a crossroad energy. So something creates a crossroad type of situation. Something points to more than one thing. So Mars, but then the other yacht points to Venus and Virgo. Don't forget that Venus and Mars speak in sextile. So, listening to discernment, but in the Venusian way, Venus, which herself is squared by Uranus, so she needs to take into consideration the unconventional. Oh, my example, the wife needs to test what the husband has improvised before she casts the final verdict, right? So if all of that, it leads to something, to some big change, to some big improvisation, innovation. And all of this, the grand sextile that's been with us for some weeks, I can't even say months now, but that's still ongoing. So we have a very strong celestial empowerment to adapt, to improvise, to find our own way, to figure stuff out. This is the energy where the excuses don't matter because we have some hidden resources. We have things we never had before. We can figure it out, but with our own timing. When time Saturn, even if time is up, how we get to our destination, understand this symbolically, well, it's a work in progress. Some people faster, for some it's a leap of faith, for others it's a steady work, for others it's patience, for others it's grabbing the opportunity when it arises, like a stealth predator, why not? Like a praying mantis. For others, sacrifice they have to show, for others, something they have to cut out from their lives. Pisces Virgo is medical access. For some people, it's the operation they need to decide to take. For others, it's something goes bye-bye from life for good or for long term, like smoking, like alcohol, like substances, like even good things, good rituals, good routines that are simply no longer, they don't longer feel like yours. Like when someone stops being vegetarian, vegan, of course, others start under this energy, no question about that. Others stop because they find a new path, what is authentically theirs, who they are now, in the now. This is where, if the energy says don't be a control freak, then don't be a control freak, even in spirit and principle. If it no longer feels your, let it go, right? Or under this energy, this is where I love my career, but I hate my job. And they say, I finally embrace change. I quit. Other people, as insecure as I feel, as uncertain as I am, I'm still gonna try my passion. Even if I don't think I'm the best, I love it so much I wanna try. So they launch themselves. A leap of faith. For other people, with Saturn, uh, the time has finally come when the tooth needs to be extracted. Sorry. What happens after you decide, based on Venus square Uranus, implant, or you leave it like that, or bridge, or whatever, crown, or but the tooth needs to be extracted. For other people, something Virgo-ish, something that they master, something that they're good at, something that they can do, their intelligence, they need to put it finally to use it as a resource. Venus is also in Virgo. Virgo itself is just like Libra. Just that Venus is not at 0 of Virgo, but at 2 degrees, still at the gate. She just full body stepped in the gate, but she's still very close. She's just one step away from the exit entrance, right? So Virgo is also in this grip where on one end it has the new moon, the other end Venus. So values, and this new moon, because of this yod and the black moon, Lilith and Scorpio energy. Remember that Jupiter amplified. A trine is a blessing because it's flow and permissive. It can permit also the filth, infection, toxicity, poison, pollution, the horror in certain parts of the world, especially the Middle East. But the horror has a side effect. You can't deny your eyes. Like, you can't help but judge. It stirs. It even stirs the judgment of who embrace non-duality. Not much, not powerfully, not for them to do something, but it stirs an emotion, it stirs an energy. That's Black Moon Lilith expanded, amplified, magnified. The side effect does something. It dishes out truth that no one can ignore. So it's powerfully fated, and something new is born in our lives, in our daily routines. But it also needs elimination. It's South Node eclipse. And elimination is so the energetic energies. It's almost like highlighted with a marker. Elimination. The 7th September lunar eclipse was eliminatory because Pisces is elimination. Lunar eclipse is the culmination of, and it was a North Node eclipse. It needed to free up space for our real dreams, for our beneficial illusions, our beneficial emotions. And then this South Node solar eclipse, something new builds on an elimination or solving a crisis. Or sometimes the South Node is understood as using something that we have in excess. Now, as a finisher, I want to mention the Sabian symbol of this energy, and then other power players that are also either at energetic degree or 0 degree, showing you the urgency of the sky. It's almost like the universe, the cosmos, insists on beginning, on initiation, on the new, the next. However, the 29s, not until it's a new beginning initiation, the 0, not until the 0 is rooted in, how should I say it, as a cumulative, as something that encompasses all sides of the energy, something rooted in truth and reality that can actually work. So, when you lay the foundations of your house, you do so being fully convinced that the schematics that it will follow, the house is gonna stand and be safe and sound. That's what this energy of zeros, ones, and 29s, alpha, omega does. So the Sabian symbol goes like this: a false call goes unheard. Now this is so multi-sided in a way, because firstly it immediately evokes the positive side, because the full Sabian symbol goes like this. Um, an individual is totally intent upon completing a work, so that individual is deaf to all allurement. So someone focused, concentrated to finish a task of work, probably something meticulous, Virgo. So the distraction, he's immune to all distractions. Phone ringing or daddy, mommy doesn't work for it. So that's usually positive for the work. However, what does this Sabian symbol tell us? Because we must not forget this is an eclipse. Is this gonna be that one time something distracts us from what we are very focused or immersed into? If what we are focused and immersed into is something not so positive in our lives, well then it's something life-saving ultimately, isn't it? Or does the eclipse represent the consolidation of the Sabian symbol, where it gives, with Uranus, Pluto, the trine, the grand, gives us the power to have that level of concentration for nothing to be able to distract us from obtaining whatever adaptation, solution, creation we need. Can be seen in more than one ways. And this can also be represented when we have the maturity, the love of reality to reject the false, even if it is poured in buckets. We reject it. It no longer works. The lie, the illusion, the glam, the magic, for example, the magic of social media, the magic of advertisement, the magic of gurus and internet personalities is no longer there. It just doesn't, no matter what they do, the glam does not work anymore. So it's positive, really. And remember, it's deeply fated. So in the following, I'm gonna mention a few other planets, or not planets, minor power players that really color the picture. They emphasize greatly on this 0, 1, or 29. So one of them being Haumea. Mars is gonna be conjunct Haumea right after the eclipse as it enters Scorpio. Haumea is the Hawaiian goddess of fertility. Haumea, the planetoid, the trans-Neptunian object, actually has an X shape, and she is one of the fastest rotating telluric objects in the solar system. Very, very fast. So she's quantum. She's tied to regeneration, sacred, feminine, but as a mother who adapts to all, and also as a sacred feminine justice seeker with empathy and sharing your emotions, forcing high emotions onto cruelty, and thereby overcoming it, rather than, for example, Aries, who takes everything into her own hands. Whatever needs to happen, no problem. So, Haumea. In Scorpio, the sign of mutation, of change, of transformation, of regeneration, the phoenix, profound wisdom, the power of shadows, but in the best possible sense. There is also another energy at 1 degree of Libra. So where both the sun and the moon are heading towards, and that is the Virgo supercluster. Now the Virgo supercluster is very important because it's almost like an even more absolute expression of the galactic center, for example. It is where the Milky Way, along with several other galaxies, are clustered. It's called the Virgo supercluster. So that's at 1 degree of Libra. What else can I say then? The fated element, divine justice, written all over it. And the Virgo cluster that's where life goes on. The cosmos goes on. Nature goes on regardless of what tragedies or moments of maximum bliss and joy we live. It doesn't matter. The cosmos, life, time, fate, all of that still go on regardless of how we feel, regardless of the tragedy. Or comedy. Then we have another energy that I spoke about in previous horoscopes at 1 degree of Aries. So conjunct Neptune, Borasisi, Pabu system. They're trans-Neptunian objects. Now Borasisi usually is associated with paternal abandonment, difficult choices of the divine masculine, or slash what paternal abandonment does to a person. Daddy wounds are very much specific to this trans-Neptunian object. So, because this Saturn and Neptune are part of the quincunx, but also part of the opposition to the new moon slash eclipse, what happens to the paternal, wound, abandonment wound, especially rejection? There is another energy, planetoid, which is also binary, just like Borasisi, Sila Nunam, at 1 degree of Virgo. This is like a masculine feminine combo. The divine masculine, the divine feminine teaming up together to do stuff, right? Create, resolve, save, etc. This represents the collaboration of the divine masculine and feminine. So Venus conjunct it. Remember my example with the husband-wife. When husband-wife collaborate, usually the best possible things are born in life. End of. Now we have yet another energy which is very notorious. Sedna at 1 degree of Gemini. Sedna herself. Let me just make sure. Just a second, please. Oh, where? There it is. So Sedna is actually already retrograde at the moment of this eclipse. So I spoke about Sedna so very many times, I'm not gonna focus on it. The power of transformation. What happens with our wounding, with our losses, with our failures or tragedies in life. how we turn them into our strength, and that divine justice is guaranteed. Conjunct Uranus, right? This is at the very core of revolution, rebellion. Sedna is very much, for example, the uh, victims of Epstein, who right now are saying, "What do you mean? This is a hoax. We are here, and we are many." That's Sedna. They are Sedna. Gemini, Sedna in Gemini. That's so Sedna in Gemini. Now we have another asteroid this time, which isn't really at 0 degrees, but I find her important because if we include her, we have a T square on her, pointing to her. Aphrodite. So, situation in families, familiar situation, husband, wife, lover situation, especially long term who are a family already. This is where there might come a very hard decision. I'm not saying to separate necessarily, but maybe the husband needs to go abroad to save the financial situation longer term. And this decision, yeah, it brings money. It saves materially, but for both of them, it emotionally is hell. And they will have to go through it, and they will have to be brave, strong. You can imagine. When the husband returns, life is gonna be different, especially in the best possible sense. They will begin anew. Life will give them, maybe if it's only 2 weeks, but still almost like they just met for the first time. And then we've been through this together. That changes. Just like as it would change an individual, it changes a real couple too. Because a real couple are like just like one after. It changes them for the better. Many times toughness, roughness is really the key to true and honest life experience and maturity that is timeless on one hand and can be more valuable than anything that exists in this modern world. Honestly, more valuable than science, than books, than friends, than the internet. That distilled life experience and wisdom of people or couples, especially who went through life. So, another energy, where we have it at 0 degree of Libra, is asteroid karma. Libra is the sign of karma. Karma being in the sign that rules it. How should I say? I don't need to. Now we have another energy which I find very, very interesting. Lachesis. I don't know how to pronounce it, so sorry. She is one of the three fates. At 0 degree of Virgo. This is where what you are weaving into your fate with your decisions. Lachesis is saying you'd better make sure that you use your common sense, rational, sane, lucid mind as well, because it is a must. The disher out of all of this eclipse energy is none other than Mercury, who is in Libra. So, on one hand, it's karmic, and on one hand, it is what it is. it is what it is. As I said, what the scales show. If we want to be, the exception from the rule, that's not free. We need to dish out strong personal morality, altruism, compassion, understanding to the table for us to benefit from that. For most of us who are self-driven, we're not going to get that. We're going to get what the scales show. What the scales show, we have to be big boys and girls and just live with it. If we if we don't have any karmic harvest at this Libra eclipse, no problem. We move on. We go and start working then to harvest, or we continue the journey, the adventure, the self-driven, even more than we did before. No problem at all. So it doesn't matter what choices and what patterns we follow in life. We still, as long as it's safe, sound, rooted in our logic, and we have ourselves really, no problem at all. It works. It moves forward. Now, at 1 degree of Virgo, we have Shiva. This is another energy I don't need to speak about. It's very clear that transformation and sanity, rooted in sanity and reality, needs to be very, very present. Yet another asteroid is at 1 degree of Scorpio, so conjunct Haumea, and this is Arachne, the weaver of fate, right? Not just of fate, who's responsible with the thread, but also of a very, very talented celestial weaver, the best weaver in the whole of cosmos. That's why she became Arachne. So weaving fate. Mars preparing to meet Arachne, and Haumea, and the quincunx. Remember the finger of God pointing to Mars. That same finger of God points even more to Arachne. But that also means that the fingers of God point to Shiva as well, Lachesis as well. It's not a simple energy. It's complicated. So this is why I said all of us need to interpret what this means. And to truly close this, there are even some fixed stars in the mix here. Well, the Virgo eclipse is conjunct fixed star Markham. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, which is very, very beneficial because it actually rules education, teaching, figuring stuff out, but also passing that on. It also rules working with knowledge, with information, with know-how, and piety. Especially right now, these are all welcome traits, and it's benevolent fixed star. However, Saturn is also conjunct-ish another fixed star, but which is deeply malevolent. I don't know how to pronounce this either, so it's Seat. Now this is sadness, sorrow, suicide, drowning. The worst of Pisces. The worst imprisonment, accidents at sea. But this is actually a good energy because that is what is being eclipsed. It stands across from the eclipse. So those what Sa- so Saturn conjuncts it, right? Saturn the end. Saturn, let's put limits onto this. So that is being resolved. So it's not a bad expression. And speaking about all of this, well, Saturn, but also the Sun before the eclipse. So not at the moment of the eclipse, a day before, 2 days before, square the galactic center. So this is divine download once again. Powerful divine download, and also previous downloads executing themselves. Because Mercury before the eclipse, few days before, was himself part of the square with the galactic center. So this is really what I can say about the solar eclipse in Virgo, but also the next 3 months. For me, the where on my hemisphere, the autumn equinox. Now, I know I asked you to hype my videos, and you said you did, and I don't know what happened, because it has even less views than when I no hype or like or anything. I don't. This YouTube is not playing ball. So if I get 200 views for this video, so if you like or share or hype or whatever you know how to do, I'm gonna throw in a pick a card tarot reading for the Libra equinox, what it may mean for us individually and collectively. So if I get 200 likes, then we'll see each other at the tarot reading. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you for everyone's love and support. Until next time, bye for now.